What's going on, guys? Welcome back. Vantage Player Workshop. Today we're going to work a little bit more on the grip and some pre-shot routine thoughts, comparisons, try to help you get a better idea of what to think about as you grip them, what's the last thing you should be thinking about, and we're also going to be analyzing what's happening up ahead. All right, so we got the camera, we got the timer, check, check, check. I think we're all good. I'm not really betting these. They don't make for the best video when I do that all at the same time. We could add it later if needed, probably good for tracking. But for this one here, I'm just gonna talk out loud. I'm gonna talk through some gripping. Everybody does the grips a little differently. So however you do it, don't do it like me. Just do it whatever makes you comfortable. But there's all the different types. There's the different tools that we showed in the other video. I can even use something very simple like this little remote, right, to just set them up next to, find a grip distance down on the pad if that's how you like it, right? If you like something a little taller, right, you find a taller piece of wood, right? If I use a taller piece of wood, that would allow me to grip it right about there. The other one is farther down, right? Any of the things that you want to use. I believe somebody showed me that recently. That's easier to see. One of those is a Yuri or something. I'm not really that familiar with it, but I've tried all the grips, right? I don't have the name that associates with every type of grip, but I've tried them all. And so I grab them however I am most comfortable. That was not a very good one, but neither is the first one out of the gate usually. That's all right. So let's talk about the range dial. That's always the first order of business anytime we play anywhere, right? We're trying to get the range correct so that way they're making initial contact, whether it be the table first, back wall second, or back wall first, then down to the table. It's all about pace, velocity, speed, etc. It's going to include an element of backspin. Of course, we pick them up. You've seen me do these long motions, right? I was over-exaggerating most of those, right? When I really get into a rhythm, I'm not even doing anything much more than this. Kind of like that. You don't see my arm extending way out unless I'm really just trying to overemphasize something. So as usual, give me a few minutes with the dice. Let me talk through a couple of things. Start to get the feel of it. Pretty cold. I haven't really been doing this. So, whenever you need to slow the toss down, you can do it one of two ways, right? You can either slow the arm, okay, or you can keep the length of your. I make golf references a lot. I'm sure you've already seen this. You can either shorten the length of the swing, keeping the velocity and speed of the arm swing the same, or you can keep the. Let me rephrase. You can keep the length of the swing the same by just slowing down the motion, right? But keeping the length. Or you could keep the velocity, the speed of the swing the same and just shortening the swing, right? So this would be an example of a long, slow swing. Okay, there's that example. This is all pretty basic for a lot of people. I understand this, but some people it's not. And so, we get a lot of views. Some people may get something out of it. So we'll just start at the bottom and start to work our way up the ladder on a little bit more complex thoughts. So I've got to start somewhere. Make sure we haven't left anything out for any of those that haven't considered or thought about this. Because remember, most people are just simply doing this, right? They're just raising their arm and letting them go. A lot of people aren't thinking about all the other things that could possibly go into it. But these are the things that if you have a lot of touch and feel, you'll really want to try and, consider, conceptualize it all, and then figure out how it can work for what you may already be doing if you don't want to overhaul your already type of toss. But as I said before, we use all combinations of angles, face angle, all these things we've already covered endlessly. But let's just talk about trying to find your range to get the kill shot, right? We're after the kill shot. What is the kill shot? Again, it's the shot that just lands softly at the base, has just enough energy to hit the wall and then die. A lot of times you'll see my kill shots coming in a lot hotter, but the ones that kill when they come in hotter, because they also are including the correct angle of descent with the right amount of back spin, and all of that stuns the dice a little bit and offsets a lot of the energy once it then moves forward. And then when you combine the different angles, they will either bounce left, right, straight, what have you. Again, the reason I like to come in and bounce one direction over another or either way, it eliminates an essence of randomness. Because instead of me throwing them straight at a pyramid, not knowing if it's going to hit the center of the pyramid, go left or right, I'm predicting which way it's going to go, right? And I'm creating the way it's going to go, which is going to help me a little bit. A lot of advantage play and all these little concepts, right? A lot of people are going to look at this and think it's ridiculous, but clearly anybody who's watched all my videos and watched this long, we're beyond the doubt part of it, right? Now we're just on the let's see what's possible part, right? Okay, so we're all the skeptics left 5 minutes ago. We understand that. Now it's just a matter of seeing what's possible, and this is what goes through my head and why I do the things that I do. And now that we've covered all those things that we've already touched on, let's just talk about how we change the distance dial and tweak it a little bit to start getting not only a softer landing and response, but to hit the spot that we want. And a lot of that just takes initial. That was, what do you think? That's a pretty good kill shot. Glad we got that one right on camera. Not like I don't throw them all day, but they're not all that pretty. So glad we got that one. Very rarely do I get to talk and explain something and then do it on the first try. My head really has to be in it. We're going to cover that in another video. The mental game, the headspace. It's obviously there's two sets. There's the mental side of the game when you don't have the dice, and then there's the mental side of the game when you do have the dice. Your head is in two different places, and it's the play box and the throw box, as I called it. Whenever you have the dice, your head should be in the throw box 99% of the time, with the exception of the time that you reach down to pick up your money and put it in your rack. If you have to put more money down and changing your bets, every second that you spend doing that takes you out of the throw box. That was also a pretty good looking kill shot. Came out a little bit more. Didn't actually kill, but that is a good throw in my book. So back to the speed and the things that we can tweak. Okay, we've covered the length of the swing. I call it swing. It's a throw. Same thing. Right? Same as a golf swing. You can lengthen your backswing and fully extend on the follow through, or you can do a sawed off approach where you're swinging, like 75 to 75%. Right? We can also do the same thing in the toss. We can go all the way out there if you really wanted to do that. Nobody's ever really going to do it quite like that, but we're just exaggerating. And then, and then we've got just a quick little, something kind of like that. But in there somewhere is a sweet spot for you to then get your throw the way you like it. Once you start to see the dice landing, responding with as little energy as needed, right, then you can start working on the rest of it. And in the beginning, you're not betting on certain numbers. You're not sniping numbers in the beginning. You're just working on getting your range, your distance, your dials, getting it all figured in. Once you're repeating a similar action, as far as the energy and the velocity, and they're not shooting all over the table, right, and they're kind of coming and landing, that's when you've kind of gotten that part figured out. Now move on to the next step, which is your direction. But for this one here, we're just talking about distance and velocity. So we are slowing it down, or we are shortening the swing, or vice versa if you're trying to go farther. If you're coming up way short, right, obviously you got to throw a little harder. Okay, what's the third thing you can do? I'm sure a lot of you guys might know this. Grip pressure. Okay, very similar to hitting a putt, right? Throwing the dice, trying to control the dice is a lot like hitting that, 14-foot downhill slider on a real fast green, right? Of course we would love to make it, but we're really just trying to hold it close so that way on the second putt we don't have a long one coming back. That's really what this is kind of like. Really, you're doing everything in your power you can, right, to hit that one you want, but you'll take anything within a foot proximity. This is kind of similar. You're doing everything you possibly can to get a good outcome, right? But as long as you don't get the 7, that's kind of like keeping it close on the second putt on the way back. You're just trying to 2-putt on this one. That's for lack of a better term, right? So in putting, in fine putting, especially downhill, when you're doing a really tough downhill putt, the grip pressure plays a big part of it. Gripping it much lighter so that way you have less energy being impacted onto the golf ball once you have it. This is the same thing. You can do the same exact swing, right? Speed, everything. But the lighter the grip pressure, the less energy that will then transfer from your fingertips into the dice going that way. Anybody who's done this, I'm sure you've seen this, but give it a shot. Okay, so what do we want to think about when we want to think about grip pressure? I do it a couple of ways, or you can do it a couple of ways. Whenever you want to get finer and finer and finer down to these, to be more precise, it's the same as doing, let's say, okay, give me a grip pressure on the scale of 1 to 10. All right, now give me a grip pressure on the scale of 0 to 1,000. Right? That extra digit is going to give you a lot more. It's going to give you a better mental picture of how much finer you want to get your grip pressure. So instead of a 3 on a scale of 1 to 10, I'm at like a 317. Okay, that's pretty soft. This one rolled out a little bit. But as far as softness and how it hit, there wasn't too much energy there. These are examples to just show you how to think about your pressure, grip pressure. Think about it on the scale of, from 1 to 1,000. 0 is not moving at all. 1,000 would be throwing them as hard as you could. Obviously, you're never going to be at 0 or 1,000. You're going to be somewhere in between, kind of like a batting average, right? All right, what's the next thing you can think about? Think about something physical, all right? Think about, what are you holding? What do you hold that's very delicate like that? I'm sure you've got your, oh, that was a beauty. I'm sure that was where it hit the rail and the wall, the table and the bottom rail at the same time. Came in a little steeper on that one. All right, what's something else? I'm sure you've already thought about something. Light as a feather, right? Holding a feather. All right, what's another one? I believe that is a 347. That one came in a little steep. I didn't care for that one. I like to think of, I'm grabbing a bubble. I'm grabbing a bubble, and I'm trying to throw the bubble across the room. Right? You know how impossible that is, right? But that's that's something you can imagine. Some of these references are cheesy. Big eye roll, navel gaze, whatever you say. And you'll have to experiment, experiment all these different things. Different grips also come into play, if you're holding it one way, but you take a lot of your meat off of the grip, like if you're going to try that Yuri thing or whatever it is, right? That takes a lot of energy off. They're just different ideas. They're concepts that you can think about and experiment. There's a lot of people, you'd be surprised, there's so many people that just don't ever even practice at all, let alone think about all these different things. And that's who these videos are for. All you craps experts out there, maybe you know all this, maybe you don't, it doesn't matter. We're just trying to make a decent quality. I like that one. That is a 6612. I think we're pretty much done with these. Start over. All right, so we've covered grip pressure, we've covered arm speed, we've covered arm length, we've covered all that. How long is this video here? How long are we at here? 15 minutes? Yeah, we're getting there. I'll just keep recording for a minute if anything else comes to mind. those roll down a little bit. You know, we're going to go into a video again about how to read, you know, what's happening once they're landing. You really need to get that figured out. And that's going to help tell you what you need to do better on the next one, right? Okay, that was not bad. Hard 10, I like it. Lost control of the blue in there a little bit, but you know, again, as I've said, we're trying to kill the dice up under here and get them to end up right here. And what happens more times than not, as we've said many, many times, is one will kill, we lose control of the other one. And we point to all these studies again, and they say, you know, both dice are acting independent of the other. Nobody can control both dice and have them correlation. Well, you know, sure, no problem. Well, guess what? You don't need to control both the dice. That was pretty. You don't need to control both of the dice. You might just need to control one of them to make a difference. And this all goes back to how much do you need in the other video we covered. You know, we referenced that study they did at UNLV. Okay? You know, they deduced that you needed an 8% control over a random shooter to get back to a 50-50 type game. So again, then you would need whatever else you could get to then get the edge. I tried to pretend to be able to, not pretend, I took a guess at how you could possibly calculate this, but again, it's all done in sessions, right? From one session to the next. Dice control is not something that can be repeated the same way day after day. It doesn't work like that. That's why all the studies are always inconclusive, right? It doesn't, a little wobbly on that one. We got a good result if we were betting the field or betting on that, of course. Yeah, I really wanted to do some of this stuff in this channel because you just didn't see a lot of this out there. A lot of these things never really get discussed, and almost nope. Look at that. How about that? Back to back, 12 and a 2. A lot of this stuff doesn't get discussed, and while a lot of people have cameras down on their ends, they don't have real close-ups of. They don't have close-ups of what the dice are actually doing, and why I was never curious. I think a lot of people didn't want to show slow-mo or have somebody or run the risk of somebody looking at their dice in slow motion for fear that they may be called out for not being able to control the dice. Well, we don't really care about any of that. You'll believe whatever you want to believe. Again, you can't be worse than random. A lot of this advantage play stuff, all of it really, you're really learning how to take advantage of the edges wherever you can get them. Wherever you perceive there to be an edge, you take an educated guess on it. You explore it. You see if that is a real edge or is it just your perception or flawed perception. Do you have an actual edge or don't you? Take an educated guess, play the game for a responsible amount of money, weigh the results, compare it to what your prediction or perception was. Throwing great looking 5-2s, I know that. Wouldn't be helping us typically, but who knows? I think we could all agree if one was to be able to control the dice, one would need them to have a lot, as little bounce, rollout, and, you know, flying all over the place as possible. So you couldn't even begin to think if you have any control at all until you can begin to slow the dice down, get them at least responding and reacting once they've landed, whatever they hit, to some type of gentle nature. And a lot of times you see my dice acting, that was pretty. A lot of times you see my dice acting a little bit crazier on the rebound. That means I've thrown it too hot, most likely, yes. But a lot of times what you'll see them be spinning. And it used to happen a lot more on the other surface. This softer, bouncier surface, I'm getting less of that spinning like a top action. So I've been really having to experiment with different things. You know, throwing them a lot softer. How you doing? Throwing them a lot softer is one way. Coming in with various angles, you know, angles of descent, face angle, all the things I've discussed. And we try it all, you know, you try moving it around, right? Try moving it around, coming over here, underneath the skull, facing the left. 639 came in a little hot. Typically, you know, when you're coming in low, you're coming in a little hotter. When you're coming in steeper, you might be coming in at the same speed, but it didn't reach its peak at a faster speed, right? You just kind of threw it up there, and then it picked up speed on the way down. When you're trying to throw it in low, it needs more speed to get all the way there before, and the only way that you can really offset that is use some more backspin. So let's use some backspin throwing directly at the wall in a lower angle. All right, you see how those both came back spinning like a top? All right, that was a great little was a great action on those. I'm happy to see that. Happy to see it did something that was predictable. Okay, similar action there, this one. The results are one thing. The actions of what we're doing is what you want to focus on. These are things that you need to start experimenting with, and don't expect you to get this overnight. I mean, I've been doing this a long time. I'm still not there. I'm still not very good. We're coming in low. We're coming in with more spin, which on this particular surface, a softer surface, is really what I found I have a better chance of being a little bit more effective. But whatever you're using today, if it's working and you're repeating it, that was no good. And you're repeating it, I landed somewhere in here. Whatever is working and you're repeating it, right? If it's producing a decent outcome and a consistent outcome, well, that's something that you can build on. All right, I like that one. Do you see that one? Okay, boom, boom, boom. Spin it around a little bit. If you can get yourself to repeating this type of similar action and you can get one of the dice on one pip, such as a 1 or a 6, which would be off axis, correct, for a hardway set, then you pretty much have already beaten the game. Okay, that's coming in low, a little more, coming in hot, coming in low, more spin. That's when you see him hit the bottom rail and then knock it right back down with a boom, 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 or a boom, boom. I don't know what happened here with this one. I know it ran into these, but I didn't like that one. It was coming in a little too hot. I'm trying to give it that wrist flick, right, to not keep it, low. And it came out way hot, or way high. I let it go about a half second too late, and it shot it up in the air. Let's see if we can't add spin while slowing it down. We're going to come in a little steeper this time. Did it make a difference? Probably not, but maybe, you never know. All right, that's pretty good for this one, guys. Remember, arm swing speed, right? How fast your arm is moving. arm swing distance, how far you've pulled it back, how far you've let it go or reached out. Grip pressure, right? All three of these working together will create a consistent, nice, soft delivery. All right, and then you'll start to work on various angles and all that stuff. We covered some low spinners coming in, trying to kill them, and you saw how that acted. You saw a couple of perfect shots that landed right at the rail. You also saw a couple that came and spun like tops. These are all different variations of the kill shot, okay? The kill shot, again, is just to ultimately not have the dice fly all over the table every roll. You know, you're going to have that 1 out of every 4 or 5 rolls. It's just it's very complicated, tough thing to do. Most people will never even think to try it because of how difficult it is. Most that try it will fail, and then only a select few who have the touch and feel and connection to it will develop it over time. And but again, you can't know until you tried it. So good luck to everybody. See you on the next one.